Welcome back everyone, and it's time to push into even more gaming videos and topics for the channel. I have a full series in the works, this being the first of game lists for different genres and styles of games, focusing on a topic or a specific game and then giving my opinion and recommendations. Now, these are 10 retro games that fans of Zelda should really try out. Now, I'm not going to call these games Zelda-like, even though many of them may fall directly under that category, and the reason being is that Zelda really is its own thing. It's an action-adventure, not an action combat or action RPG. The combat in Zelda is never all that hard. It's more about exploring, finding the right tools or weapons, and then taking out the boss. The true progression has always been about finding that switch, solving that puzzle so you can get to that next weapon, or open that next part of the dungeon to progress throughout the game. But we want games that are mostly going to have a lot of the same charm and those similar things. Things like a huge overworld, then dungeons that are spread out across the land. They're going to be puzzles, action combat, upgrading weapons, finding new weapons, finding tools, and using all of that to unlock new areas and progress throughout the game. And the first game on the list goes all the way back to the NES era, Ys and Ys II. These two games are going to be grouped together in the first two spots because they're basically the same game broken into two parts to tell one complete story. Similar to another game that's going to be listed here later, the Ys series started out with that much forgotten bump and run combat mechanic. This is something that seems a little weird when you first get into the game, but for me it quickly becomes a really fun, if not a little odd mechanic that makes combat just a little different. And the bump and run feature only takes a few minutes. After you fight your first few enemies, you really do get the hang of it. And it's just fun to zone out, grind while you're dashing around, bumping in, taking out all the different enemies. In the game, you get to explore, figure out the mysteries of the world, and acquire what is needed to open up the world and find your way throughout the dungeons and make your way to the end of the game. The other fun part about Ys, for people new to the franchise, is trying to figure out which versions, originals, or remakes that you want to play. And I might as well group these up again here in this next spot and stick with the red-headed hero Adol as he sets off on even more adventures in Ys 3, 4, and 5. Now, I highly recommend skipping over the original release of Ys 3, which was called The Wanderers of Ys, and instead play the remake, which was made much later, Ys The Oath in Felghana, because it's just a much better game. The original Ys 3 was good, but it was a side-scrolling game very similar to Zelda 2, The Adventures of Link, only it was nowhere near as good as The Adventures of Link. And to make things more confusing, there are 3 separate releases of Part 4. There was originally Mask of the Sun, which was created for the SNES over in Japan, and another made by Hudson Soft called The Dawn of Ys. Both of those games came out near the same time. They originally went with the Mask of the Sun as being the canon version of 4 until much later, again in 2012, they released Ys 4, The Memories of Celceta. That's the one that I would recommend. Super confusing, right? Right? Alright, let's go on. But even though they have a lot in common with Zelda, the series really does their own thing and branches off into their own style of action-adventure gaming. With such depth in adventure, exploration, and finding new things, it's crazy to say that maybe the best part of the Ys games, especially the earlier ones, were by far the amazing rock-like soundtracks and the insanely difficult yet rewarding boss fights. And if the Ys series is a series that you have passed up, I highly recommend picking it up. The game has made a drastic shift, especially in the last 2 games, moving to a more modern 3D action RPG. It's definitely a good series to pick up. It's something that I think a lot of RPG and Zelda-like fans would like, and I think that the new games actually are a lot better and should get a lot more attention than they currently are now. Illusion of Gaia is an action-adventure RPG developed by Quintet and published by Enix during the SNES era. It's the second in what many gamers refer to as the Quintet trilogy, consisting of Soul Blazer, The Illusion of Gaia, and Terra Enigma. This game creates a story that makes you want to wonder, become curious about many histories of our past civilizations. And though the game very much locks you into a strict linear style, limiting the sense of exploration, I feel that the mystery of the story, when it brings you to a new area, helps alleviate that by making each time period and area of the game seem exciting. With cool dungeons, puzzles, and a solid combat system and a very memorable story, Illusion of Gaia is often looked to by many gamers as one of the best classic adventure RPGs of the SNES era. Terranigma. Oh, Terranigma. One of those games that we here in the United States can still rightfully be upset for never getting. Published by Enix in Japan and then a year later in Europe and Australia, the game would never see a US release due to Enix closing their American studio before localization was finished. And due to complications between what I assume were the rights between Quintet and the new modern day Square Enix over the game, it has yet to see a re-release to bring it to the United States. It's a massive overworld, side quests, puzzles, dungeons, items, and upgrades. Terranigma for years has been argued as being as good as, or even better than titles such as A Link to the Past, Chrono Trigger, Secret of Mana, and my all-time favorite RPG, Final Fantasy VI. Out of all the classic 16-bit Zelda-like adventure RPG games, I feel that Terranigma is probably the best that the fewest amount of gamers have been able to experience.
Shoot! Why do I have to do this?
Brave Fencer Masashi at heart is campy in its English voice acting, has easy bosses that are really just a fun aspect of the game and don't require a lot of attempts to learn and perfect the battle. The mechanics of the bosses are mostly fairly simple. The game really is about exploration as you try to figure out what you need to do to make it to the next area. The combat is what you would expect from a PlayStation 1 action-adventure game, a bit rough at times with unfair hitboxes that don't always seem correct. The platforming has the same issue at times, but really, those don't harm the fun and charm of the game. It really is all about the progress of the game, heading to that hub city, bouncing around, talking to people, trying to figure out the mysteries, how to unlock the next part of your adventure. I really feel that for most gamers, this is the type of game that you just like and enjoy despite its flaws. When looking back at the NES era of gaming, there are a lot of people that hold Crystalis in high regards. It's often referred to as the other option for Zelda during that time period, and Like shares some of that feel, but it is its own game in so many ways. It's very much tied to adventure and combat, and Like has a really great soundtrack for an NES game. The main focus is upgrading and finding things to help advance through the game. The leveling, the grinding is in a lot of ways the gatekeeper to progress throughout the game, and truly is one of the hidden gems of the NES era. And to close it all out, why not mention the game that has been called the Sega Zelda since its release, Crusader of Centy. I've seen and known about this game for years and only just recently played it. The game almost didn't even come to America, but at the last moment Atlas decided to pick it up and bring it over, but that was when the gaming industry was already moving out of the 16-bit era. Because of that, sales for the game never ended up being all that high. And the game's easy, and I mean it's very easy. The combat is simple and very much like Zelda. The items you get to use as you upgrade and unlock progression, very Zelda-like. The graphics, colors, the creatures, the NPCs, the towns, they all scream Zelda, but they do their puzzles a little differently, and in the element of being able to summon different animals to open up new ways to use the abilities that you already have. The hero can equip up to 2 animals. Mixing and matching them at times allows for you to do things you couldn't do with any other combination. So there'll be times that you have to sit and think about it, but it's not going to be too long until you say, oh, and you're going to swap out what's needed to open your path to that next part. The bosses at combat just feel fun, and it's nice that the hero is able to turn in 8 different directions, unlike Link, who at that time was still stuck to the 4, up, down, left, and right. And when I was playing this one, I really couldn't help but feel that the combat, the bosses, the level designs, and the dungeons were very, very similar to The Legend of Zelda: The Minish Cap. This, though, is a story about monsters and animals and acquiring certain ones to open up new abilities and allow you to progress through the game. But even if it is a little too easy, that doesn't take away from the lighthearted, good feeling and charm that the game has, and it was an absolute joy to play. So if you enjoy retro games and love the Zelda series, this is a game you really should set a few nights aside for and just sit down and enjoy. And that wraps it up. Those are 10 action-adventure retro games for fans of Zelda that maybe hopefully there's a couple of them here that you like. So let me know of any other classics that you feel would be a nice fit for Zelda fans. I have a list already of another 10 games for part 2 of this video, But I still want to hear your recommendations down in the comments below. And as always, hit that like and subscribe. 1,000 subs so close, and I thank each and every one of you. And as always, I will see you all in the next video. See ya.